Democrats, leftists, and liberal sects of scum.
Hey guys, Smitty here. Welcome back to the Snake Pit for another Saturday special. And we have got a treat especial for you today. None other than the Three Stooges. You may know them as Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Ihlan, Omar, and Rashida Talib. Yes, they are the Three Stooges. Love that. Always love that. I get a kick out of them. Big Three Stooges fan my whole life. Welcome back. These Three Stooges, though, are not funny stooges. They are not funny at all. They're dangerous. They're disgusting. They're anti-American, and they are full of hate, especially for guys like me. I'm talking about the white male. Yeah, they hate us, especially the Christian white male. I'm a Catholic white male, so that gives me an extra strike. I want to talk specifically about, I guess, the leader who would be Mo, which is Ihlan Omar. Ihlan Omar was elected in a district in Minnesota that is very, very radical. It has seen a huge explosion in population of Somalis and Ethiopians over the past dozen years or so, and that was a direct result of Barack Hussein Obama, aka Barry Soetoro, our traitor, imposter, Kenyan-born homosexual president that we had for 8 years, who kind of usurped the office and got away with it. Manchurian candidate that really was. Anyway, Omar is a case study in everything that's gone wrong with the United States, specifically the House of Representatives, and where we're headed as a nation. And it's nowhere good. It's bad. It's really bad. You may hear a little bit of noise in the background. I've got the windows open. It's gorgeous today. 70 degrees on this day before Easter, and the wind's blowing the shades around a bit, so nothing to be alarmed about. We did not get the tornadoes the other night we thought we were going to get, so. Anyway, Ihlan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Rashida Talib have proven to be very, very radical. I mean, I'm talking on the absolute fringe of American society and even of the Democrat Party. Problem is, like, I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has, like, I don't know, 1 million YouTube followers or 1 million Twitter followers or something like that. And traditional mainstream Democrats, even the mainstream Democrats who are slightly left or even far left, like Nancy Pelosi, they are scared to death of Cortez and Omar and Talib. And it's because they have all these Twitter followers, but it's also because they're young and they're up and coming, and the old guard knows that their days are limited, their days are numbered. Some of these people, like Rashida Talib, were elected on a platform of impeaching President Trump. Now, what gets me is, you know, these people all seem to be products of government schooling. They don't even understand what impeachment is or what impeachment's for or how it worked. Rashida Talib was elected specifically on a platform of impeaching President Trump. Doesn't matter that he didn't do anything. Doesn't matter that he's broken no laws. Doesn't matter that he doesn't meet the criteria for being impeached, which is high crimes and misdemeanors. Doesn't matter. They think that they can just impeach a president because they don't like him and they don't like the outcome of the election, and that's not the way the government works. It's not the way the Constitution is set up. And thank God we have a Republican Senate, so that even if they do impeach him, he'll never be convicted, never be removed from office. But it really speaks to the fact that how little civics and government education kids are getting in this country, and people in general in this country know. You ask the average person out on the street what the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are, which is the Bill of Rights. Very few of them can give you 10. Most of them can't give you 5. But again, these people just think, well, I'm going to get elected and I'm going to help impeach the president. You don't just impeach a president because you don't like the outcome of the election. That's where they're headed. That's what they want. That's what they've wanted. They've been talking about, Maxine Waters has been talking about impeaching the president since before the man was inaugurated. The man wasn't even officially in office yet, and crazy Maxine, was talking about impeaching the president. Impeach 45! Impeach 45! Impeach 45! I mean, she sounds like a lunatic. She is a lunatic, but back to the Three Stooges here. Ocasio-Cortez is radical enough, since she had her staff on a weekend sit together and cobble up the quote-unquote Green New Deal, which is just a roadmap to Marxism for the United States. Talib and Omar are radical Islamists. Omar believes in Sharia. Talib, we don't know yet. She may or may not, but Omar believes in Sharia. You know, and she jams it in everybody's face. It's like, I'm Muslim and you're going to like it. You're going to think it's great. Well, I don't. I don't like Muslims, period. Now, that may make me a racist. Well, it can't make me a racist because Islam is a religion. That may make me anti-Muslim, which it does. But that doesn't make me a bad person. I am pro-Christianity. I am pro-Judaism. I'm anti-Muslim. I don't like Islam. It's just that simple. I'm allowed to do that as an American. I'm allowed not to like Islam. I've had my fill since 2001 of listening to people tell me how Islam is a religion of peace, when I have watched with my own half brown, half green eyes that Islam is anything but a religion of peace. It's not. Islam is a religion of dominance, superiority, colonization, and conquering. At one point, Islam spread all through the Middle East, North Africa, into Central Africa, all the way up into Spain and through Central Europe, until it was finally stopped by the Christians. Islam somehow believes and is trying to force the rest of the world back into the 5th century. I don't want to live in the 5th century. I don't want my son or his kids or their kids to live in the 5th century. I don't want to have a religion come into my country and tell me convert or die. That's what Islam preaches. You either convert, or you pay enormous taxes to the religion, or you die. Those are your 3 choices under Islam, under the 5th century brand of Islam that most of the Islamists practice now. The United States Constitution has flaws. I'm the first to admit it. Anybody who doesn't admit it is just lying to themselves and everyone around them. But the Constitution has worked remarkably well for 230 plus years. Again, yes, there are flaws. There are no perfect systems because all systems are made by man and man is far from perfect. I'm far from perfect and I'm the first one to admit it. But the United States is still the freest country in the world. It's the best country in the world. Hell, if it wasn't, so many people wouldn't be trying to get in here. And the idea that these 5th century extremists want to replace my Constitution and replace my God-given freedoms with Sharia law, which is an extreme form of Islam, an Islamic law, it makes my skin crawl, but it makes me sick to think that there are people who would want it. And, you know, back in the 70s, we had the old bumper sticker that said, America, love it or leave it. All right, whatever. It became kind of a catchphrase. But there was a grain of truth in it. If you don't like America, leave. Nobody's forcing you to stay here. Nobody's forcing you to stay here. Nobody's forcing you to be here. Nobody's forcing you to live here. And when I see these people like Ihlan Omar, who want to practice Sharia, and want to make all these changes to the country, I have a real problem with that. You know, go back to Somalia, go to Ethiopia, go to Sudan, go to Congo. There are so many places for you to go. Go. Celebrate your Middle Eastern heritage. Celebrate your African roots. You don't need to be here. And stop trying to change my fucking country. It wasn't set up for you to change. Ihlan Omar has gone off on some horrific tirades. She hates President Trump, and she hates America. She hates the United States. She hates everything the United States stands for. She's got a chip on her shoulder the size of Texas. Little sip on the old Twinings Earl Grey, extra sweet. Ihlan Omar was giving a speech to a CARE group, Council on American Islamic Relations. CARE has been tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is recognized by the U.S. State Department as a terrorist organization. I want somebody to tell me, almost 5 months after Ihlan Omar has been sworn in as a congressperson, I want someone to tell me why she is giving speeches helping funnel money to a terrorist group and no one's saying a thing about it. I want to know why the FBI is not investigating her. I want to know why the Justice Department is not going after her. I want to know why the Minnesota State Department of Justice is not going after her for dealing with and funneling money to a terrorist group. Now, I do understand she's under investigation for misuse of campaign funds. No surprise there. Probably sending those to CARE as well. But the woman is helping raise money for a terrorist group. Why is no one going after her? Why is the fat guy from northeastern Pennsylvania the only one who's talking about this? Here is the speech that Ihlan Omar gave a week and a half ago that really ignited a firestorm on top of all the multiple firestorms she's already ignited. Let's take a listen.
Congresswoman Ihlan Omar. She's not backing down from the controversy over these comments about the 9/11 terror attacks.
Here's the truth. Far too long, we have lived with the discomfort of being a second-class citizen. And frankly, I'm tired of it. And every single Muslim in this country.
Now, my assumption is she's talking about Muslims being second-class citizens. The hypocrisy and the glaring ridiculousness of her statement is almost overwhelming. She is a Muslim from Somalia who is a United States congressman. How in the fuck can this milk dud say that she's a second-class citizen? Second-class citizens don't get elected to Congress. If she were in a Middle Eastern country practicing Sharia, not only would she not be in Congress, most of the time she wouldn't even be allowed out of the house. And she'd be in a full burqa right now. Bad enough that she walks around wearing the symbol of oppression of women, the hijab, on her head everywhere she goes and flaunts it as though it's some symbol of her religion. It's a symbol of religious oppression, men oppressing women. And I think it's too tight and it's squashed her head into the shape of a milk dud, affecting her brain. Second-class citizens are people who are burned alive, like they do in Muslim countries. Second-class citizens are people who are stoned to death, like they do in Muslim countries. Second-class citizens are women who are raped repeatedly by family members, and nothing is done about it because women are treated as property, like in Muslim countries. Second-class citizens are where homosexuals and lesbians are thrown from the tops of buildings, like they do in Muslim countries. Second-class citizens are where women have their genitals mutilated, like they do in Muslim countries. Second-class citizens are where women aren't allowed to attend school, like they do in Muslim countries. Second-class citizens are like where women are not even allowed to drive, like they do in Muslim countries. Those are examples of second-class citizens, and they all take place right here today in 2019 in Muslim countries. Because somehow Islam is like a religious time machine, and these folks are living back in the 5th century. I don't want her dragging it here. She thinks it's so bad here. Why doesn't she go to Sudan or Somalia or Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan? Why doesn't she go there to find out what it's like to be treated as a second-class citizen?
Should be tired of it.
And Muslims should be tired of it. No, bitch. You should be delighted. You should get down on your hands and knees and kiss the ground every day that you're an American citizen. That you're protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. That you have the rights and freedoms that you do to stand there and make these outrageous fucking statements. Instead, you're a hateful, vindictive, nasty bitch.
CARE was founded after 9/11.
CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. They're a terrorist group. They fund terrorism.
Because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
I don't do this frequently, but I almost cried. And my son and I were talking about 9/11 a little while ago. And I'm sorry. It's very emotional for me. I was working for the government at the time this happened, next to a military installation, and I remember 9/11 very vividly. I'm sorry, folks. For this dirty gash to say that some people did something beyond the fucking pale. A group of murderous, barbarous, 5th century fanatical animals hijacked planes, murdered innocent American passengers, and flew those planes into buildings, killing thousands of Americans whose only crime was going to work that day. When I think of the firefighters and the police and the first responders and the innocent people and the families who were affected by what they did, and for her to stand there in front of a captive audience and say some people did something. If it wasn't the United States of America, she'd be deported or she'd be jailed. And then for her to say that after 9/11, Muslims in America started losing their civil rights, losing access to their civil rights. The opposite is true. The President of the United States, George W. Bush, like him or hate him, went around the country making a mass appeal not to go after Muslims. Other people in the country, in the government, on television, in entertainment, went on an appeal not to go after Muslims. And on the whole, we didn't, because Americans don't do that. Maybe Sharia Muslims do, who are stuck in the 5th century, but we didn't hold all of Islam personally responsible for what happened. Yes, there were incidents here or there. They were unfortunate, but they were small and they were widespread and scattered. And this idea that they were losing access to their civil rights, where? What's an example? She can't and couldn't give one single example. The Japanese during World War II, those poor people lost their civil rights when they were rounded up and put in internment camps by a Democrat, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. There were no internment camps by the Republican President George W. Bush. Muslims weren't systematically rounded up and put in camps. They didn't lose any of their civil rights, so I don't know what this bitch is talking about.
Freshman Democratic lawmakers now rushing to Omar's defense. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez attacking the New York Post for responding to Omar with this cover.
And here's what the New York Post had to say. These are people who were there. This is a New York City paper. Here's your something that some people did something to. Those buildings with thousands of people in them. 2,977 people dead by terrorism. Your people. Not Methodists, not Baptists, not Jews, not Catholics, not Christians, not Buddhists or Sikhs, or deists or Taoists or Taoists. Muslims. How dare you?
Watch.
Printing on the front page to circulate all around New York City an image that is incredibly upsetting and triggering for New Yorkers that were actually there and were actually in the radius, that woke up one morning or were in their schools and didn't know if they were going to see their parents at the end of the day. To elicit such an image for such a transparently...
Now, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez obviously sees how upsetting 9/11 is, especially for New Yorkers. I mean, hell, where I live in Pennsylvania, we're only a little over an hour away from New York City. This bitch knows how upsetting 9/11 is. And instead of condemning Ihlan Omar for what she said, she's condemning the New York Post for giving the big fat finger to Ihlan Omar. Oh, you can't do that because it's incredibly upsetting. What does she think Ihlan Omar's comments were? They weren't upsetting? The lack of empathy, the lack of understanding, being so out of touch with the people in your own district is just fucking glaring. Glaring. Did Ocasio-Cortez really think that nobody was going to respond to her pal, Ihlan Omar?
and politically motivated attack.
And of course, right away, it's politically motivated. It's not that Ihlan Omar's comments were horribly insensitive, riddled with lies, but, oh, this is just politically motivated.
We are getting to a level where this is an incitement of violence.
And so the newspaper was inciting people to violence. So the New York Post isn't allowed to comment on what Ihlan Omar said, because if they do, that could incite people to violence. This is the kind of shit that's going on in Australia that we've seen with Lawrence Sutherland and other people, where police are now stopping non-Muslims from going into Muslim areas because that might incite violence. So a white Christian walking into a Muslim neighborhood can't be allowed anymore because her very presence might incite the Muslims to attack her. So Muslims have so little self-control that the mere presence of a white Christian might cause them to riot. That's what they're saying in Australia, and even in England now, where we have no-go zones, where basically there are Muslim enclaves and no one else is allowed to enter. That's what she's saying. Commenting even on what Ihlan Omar said could cause incitement to violence. So shut your mouth. Don't say anything.
Progressive women of color.
And of course, it's nothing more than an attack on progressive women of color. Are you fucking kidding me? Again, if I didn't know thanks to Mr. Reagan and some others on the web, on YouTubers in specifically, if I didn't know that Cortez was nothing but a person who answered a cattle call, basically, and was put up to run for Congress, funded to run for Congress, and is basically handed a script for everything she says and does, I would think that she has no touch whatsoever with the people of New York. For her to hear the inflammatory things that were said, the nasty things that Ihlan Omar said, and then for anyone to respond and her to attack the responders, beyond the pale. Beyond the fucking pale. Texas Representative Dan Crenshaw, new congressman. Dan Crenshaw is a decorated combat veteran who fought in Afghanistan, and you've probably seen him on TV. He's been on a lot of different news shows, been interviewed by many different people here and there about different bills, etc. Here is a picture of Congressman Crenshaw. I know you've seen him here and there. And let's see here. I'm wrong. He is not U.S. Army. Congressman Dan Crenshaw, United States Representative from Texas. Daniel Reed Crenshaw is an American politician, former U.S. Navy SEAL officer, serving in Texas' 2nd Congressional District. Member of the Republican Party, he was elected in the 2018 midterms. Congressman Crenshaw isn't playing fucking pirate. He's not dressing up for Halloween. He lost his eye in the service of this country. He lost his eye protecting the freedoms that allow Ihlan Omar to stand there and lie and spew hate and filth. And Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez to stand and lie and defend this gash. Well, let's hear what Congressman Omar again had to say.
Most of the things that have always been aggravating to me is that...
Wrong cut. In any case, she talks about Muslims being second-class citizens. Lie. Talks about Muslims losing their civil rights. Lie. Not only did they not lose their civil rights, but they didn't lose access to their civil rights. After Ihlan Omar said that some people did something on 9/11, Congressman Crenshaw's tweet on Twitter was very short and very specific. And he said, in response, the first member of Congress ever to describe terrorists who killed thousands of Americans on 9/11 as some people who did something. Unbelievable. That's all he said. Very calm, very cool, very collected, very professional. Let me read it again. The first member of Congress ever to describe terrorists who killed thousands of Americans on 9/11 as some people who did something. Unbelievable. Well, we got Ihlan Omar mentions 9/11 and does not consider it a terrorist attack on the USA by terrorists. She refers, some people did something, then goes on to justify the establishment of care on U.S. soil, which is what she did. What happened after that was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. That was all Congressman Crenshaw said. Well, immediately Ihlan Omar responded, "This is a dangerous incitement. Given the death threats I face, I hope both leaders of both parties will join me in condemning Congressman Crenshaw's comments. My love and commitment to our country and that of our colleagues should never be in question. We are all Americans." Really? All this gash has done since she's been in Congress is try and divide people. That's all she's done. She's trying to divide people and run down America. That's all she's done. That's all she's done. Talk about how horrible America is and how nasty and evil and wicked, yada, 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 yada. Jerry Nadler, congressman, fat piece of shit from New York. The Ziploc bag full of puke, who's done nothing but run down President Trump since before he was elected, and now won't accept the Mueller report, won't accept the findings, and is going to subpoena the unredacted report, et cetera, et cetera. This guy's a real piece of work. He is a real pile of dog shit. While appearing on Sunday's edition of CNN's State of the Union, Gerald Nadler, Googled, bought and paid for Democrat House member from New York, told host Jake Tapper he has absolutely no problem with Ihlan Omar's dismissive and offensive characterization of the September 11, 2001 terror attacks as some people did something. He also accused President Trump of being a thief. Now, how the fuck is President Trump even injected into this conversation? This guy is nothing but a partisan piece of shit. No, I did not, Nadler said when Tapper asked if he took issue with Omar's comment. And he's from New York. You wonder how fat pantloads of shit like this clown get elected. According to Nadler, the freshman anti-Semite from Minnesota was simply trying to show how people use the attack as an excuse for discrimination. Really? They make it seem as though right after the attack, every white non-Muslim America went on a rampage and started murdering Muslims in the streets, when nothing could be further from the truth. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Wow, that's tough to say. Immediately went right to Ihlan Omar's side because she's a woman of color too, and she had to defend her. But it was what she's best at. Sensationalism, bullshit, and lies after her new Green Deal. You might want to sit down for this, but it appears that Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez has been lying again. Oh no! Shocker of shocks! AOC, as they call her, you know, like President John F. Kennedy was JFK, like she even deserves to be elevated in the same sentence, tweeted, "I'm not going to quote the New York Post's horrifying, hateful cover. The horror of it. Here's one fact. Ihlan Omar is a co-sponsor of the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund. She's done more for 9/11 families than the GOP, who won't even support health care for the first responders, yet are happy to weaponize her faith." What the fuck does that even mean? But guess what? It's a lie! You refuse to co-sponsor the 9/11 Victims Fund. You have the audacity to drum up resentment towards Ihlan with completely out-of-context quotes. She said some people did something on 9/11. In context or out of context, that is unacceptable for any American even to think, let alone to say. In 2018, right-wing extremists were behind almost all U.S. domestic killings. Why don't you go do something about that? That's what she said to Congressman Crenshaw. Dirty centipede-infested cunt. That man gave his eye. He didn't give an arm and a leg. He gave his eye to stop terrorism. What the fuck have you done? You nasty bitch. Aside from the fact that while she was busy tending bar in New York City, Dan Crenshaw was risking his life as a Navy SEAL to protect ingrate pieces of shit like her. AOC's attempt to paint Ihlan Omar as some sort of patriot and Crenshaw and the Republicans as enemies of 9/11 victims is completely dishonest. She lied. Ryan Severa says, this is pretty deceptive. The bill has not even been voted on yet in the House, and a person does not have to co-sponsor a bill to vote in support of it. Of course, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez didn't know that. After all, this is the same woman who said, I can't wait to go to Congress and be sworn in so we can start signing laws. She's a fucking moron. She's an imbecile. So we can start signing laws. Woman who thought that there were 3 branches of Congress and said so. The most recent action on the bill was actually referring it to a subcommittee. So she lied again. The Republican-controlled House and Senate passed a bill back in 2016, allowing 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia for the attack. The very first time. President George W. Bush wouldn't allow it. Congresses before wouldn't allow it. Gee, controlled by Democrats. But the Republican-controlled House and Senate in 2016, for the very first time, allowed families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia. Oh, but those Republicans they're horrible. They won't even support 9/11 victims' families. Obama vetoed it. Obama, their champion, Barack Hussein Obama, say it with pride. Our foreign-born Kenyan trader president. So the Republican-controlled House and Senate passed a law out of committee and referred it to the president's desk for signature that would have allowed for the first time families of the victims of 9/11 to sue Saudi Arabia, as they should have been allowed, and Obama vetoed it. Oh my, do you think he was influenced? Maybe by Saudi Arabia? Further, the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund has been around for years. Ihlan Omar did not create it. Neither did Rashida Talib, and neither did AOC. The bill was initially signed into law right after 9/11 by President George W. Bush. And there's the link, federalregister.gov. It has been renewed multiple times by multiple Congresses since 9/11 to keep the funding going. So in other words, she lied. Seems to be one of the things she does best. Aside from dancing around on the tops of buildings making YouTube videos when she probably should have been in school. I can't remember when she went to Boston University or Boston College, but she studied apparently economics and political science or foreign politics or something like that. I'm guessing she spent a lot of time tending bar, a lot of time sucking cock, and a lot of time making YouTube videos because the bitch didn't learn shit about shit. The bill AOC is talking about has not yet been voted on. 217 Republicans and Democrats co-sponsored the bill. Let me read that again for you. 217 Republicans and Democrats co-sponsored the bill, which means absolutely nothing. Co-sponsoring a bill really means nothing except something nice to pad your resume with and show your extra accomplishments. A person does not have to co-sponsor a bill in order to vote for it. According to Congress.gov, the bill currently has 213 co-sponsors. And no, co-sponsoring a bill is not the same as voting for it. You would think after what happened to Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal in the Senate, she might have a fucking clue about that by now. But obviously, She's about as sharp as the top of this desk, which ain't too sharp. And then, of course, she went on to say, Ihlan Omar went on to say, when Democrats stood our ground last month, we proved that one individual did not have the public support to ram this hateful wall through Congress, talking about Trump's wall. And she's obviously wrong, because half of the people in the country do want the wall. Ryan Saavedra goes on to say, Republicans are always supporting the military more than Democrats and work much harder on terrorism than Democrats ever have. That's true. Omar has called for defunding the entire Department of Homeland Security. But she wants you to believe that she's hard on terrorists. Omar wants to defund the entire Department of Homeland Security. I'll say it again. Which was created after 9/11 to help stop terrorism. Omar has also advocated leniency in sentencing of men from Minnesota, her district, that were trying to join ISIS. But again, she wants us to believe she's hard on terrorism. Just last week, Omar called for a senior member of the Muslim Brotherhood to be released from prison in Egypt. Again, she wants us to believe that she's hard on terrorism. She is a flaming pile of dog shit that somebody dropped on someone's front porch on Halloween night and stomped in. I said it a couple weeks ago. You want to go for that windpipe, and right about there, you want to feel where those rings are, and you want to snap it. Snap it. Because that's what she deserves. And after you snap it, you just leave her laying on the front porch in the burning pile of shit. Because it's what she deserves. The woman is trying to raise money for a terrorist group. She wants terrorists to be given leniency. She wants to dissolve the Department of Homeland Security and wants to make believe that 9/11 was, just some people who did something. And Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez defends her. And Cortez is from New York City. Come on, people. How the fuck do you vote for people like this? Unless you believe in what they're doing and what they're saying and what they want to do. It boggles the mind. Then, of course, we got into Ihlan Omar talking about how Americans just can't handle women of color being in Congress and women of Islamic faith being in Congress, and how the wearing of the hijab triggers them. Again, it boggles the mind. It absolutely boggles the mind. And interesting story here by Rita Panay. And this is out of the Daily Telegraph from England. It says the incisive minds at the city of Greater Dandenong are said to be shocked by public backlash to their hijab hijinks earlier this month. Controversy began when someone at the city council authorized a press release that encouraged non-Muslim women to wear hijab for 3 hours in some misguided effort to raise awareness and insight as part of an experiment by local students for National Youth Week. Ooh, let's pretend to be oppressed. That's right, a local government authority should be concerning itself with collecting trash, maintaining parks, not squandering taxpayers' money, etc. Thought it would involve itself in a little social engineering. The reaction from many locals, as well as the wider population, was to recoil in disgust, as they should have, in the manner that rapper Drake reacted when Madonna molested him on stage. Yuck. It's rather extraordinary that those within the council were taken aback by the scathing public response. What the fuck did they expect? It's like making sure we all walk around with giant crosses around our necks on Good Friday so we can pretend to be Catholic. Let's all wear hijabs and squash our heads into the shape of a milk dud so we can see what it's like for 3 hours. Did they think empowered Western women would embrace the idea of donning Muslim headscarves and subjugating themselves in the name of diversity? See, women in the West don't go for that shit. Women in the West fought. They wanted to be able to vote. They wanted to be able to get out of the house. They didn't want to be covered in a burqa, have their heads squashed in a hijab. Newsflash, women in the West are equal to men. They're treated equally by our laws. They're treated equally politically. And while they may not be equal in every aspect, equality of the sexes in Western society is a keystone of what we believe in. Why stop at headscarves? In the greater city of Dandong is really serious about embracing cultural and religious practices of other countries. Why not encourage women to drive for 3 hours and raise awareness and insight of the rich culture of Saudi Arabia? Or perhaps a celebration of Sharia law involving an adulteress being flogged in the city square or stoned to death. Or why doesn't the city council employ morality police armed with long canes who can whip women in public for showing too much hair or too much skin? That might familiarize the locals with what happens in parts of the world where hijabs are compulsory. Ihlan Omar walks around trying to say that this is some impressive part of her faith and she's proud to wear a hijab and it's empowering to her. No, it's not. They're compulsory in Islamic nations. If you don't wear them, they beat you or kill you. Women in Islam are property, the property of their husbands. It's more like a slave collar than anything else. I wonder how women fled countries that require them to cover up feel about local women being encouraged by their governments to wear hijabs. Yeah, not all women like it. A lot of them left those horrible countries, or should I say escaped from them, so they didn't have to do this kind of crap. It's only late last year when women in Iran were disfigured and blinded in acid attacks for daring to contravene Iran's strict national Islamic religious hijab wearing code. Fine, you don't want to wear the hijab? You'll be blinded in an acid attack. We'll take some hydrochloric or some sulfuric acid and throw it in your fucking face. We'll burn your eyes out and disfigure you for life. This is what Ihlan Omar is defending? And somehow she wears a hijab like a badge of honor and dares to attack people who would even question it? Shouldn't we stand with disempowered women in Islamic countries across the world instead of celebrating an instrument that is used in their oppression and suppression? For many, the hijab, along with the completely dehumanizing niqab and burqa, are symbols of oppression. Not some national costume to be worn for shits and giggles. They're not Halloween costumes. They're not something that these Islamic women who live under Sharia wake up and say, oh, maybe I'll wear a full burqa today because it's cooler. I just like to. They do it because what'll happen to them if they don't? Can you imagine for 1 second, just 1 second, a woman in the United States goes out in public and because she doesn't have lipstick on, somebody burns her face in an acid attack and blinds and disfigures her for the rest of her life because she doesn't have lipstick on. That's what we're talking about here, folks. This is so fucked up, so beyond the pale of rationality. I have to wonder how deep and profound the brainwashing of Ihlan Omar really was and really is back when she was living in her home country. Somalian-born author and activist Ihlan Ali describes Muslim headscarves as a means in which a deeply patriarchal culture oppresses women. Yet Ihlan Omar does nothing but defend how wonderful it is to wear the hijab, while she rails against patriarchal societies. The two are mutually exclusive. It's either one or the other. The veil sets women apart from men, from the world. It restrains them, confines them, and grooms them for docility. Because in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, women are supposed to be docile. Women are supposed to be submissive to their men. That's it. If a woman is raped in Islamic culture, it's her fault by their law. And she's punished for it. She's punished for being raped because she did something to deserve it. It's the mark of a kind of apartheid or apartheid, not the domination of race, but of a sex. I say apartheid or apartheid because back in the day in the 80s when apartheid ruled South Africa, people often want to know, how do you pronounce that word? Is it apartheid or apartheid? And they used to say, well, one rhymes with white and the other rhymes with hate. So apartheid rhymes with hate, and apartheid rhymes with white. Thank God apartheid's gone now in South Africa, but now they've gone the other way and now they're killing whites just because they're white. But that's a story for another time. Just how is social cohesion advanced by these ludicrous proposals? There are, of course, women that argue wearing a veil and being emboldened. Modern women are not mutually exclusive, but they are. Indeed, some women argue, far from being a universal symbol of subjugation, the hijab and even face covering of a niqab and burqa are empowering. That would be the Ihlan Omars of the world. As someone from a Middle Eastern background, I've seen firsthand the pressure of girls to obey their devout parents as well as their country's wishes in regards to how they dress. That pressure to conform can be overwhelming. You risk not only being judged, but denounced and reviled, hey Tibbs, and completely ostracized. Being a source of shame. Come here, kiddo. Come here. All right, you're on camera, Tibbs. This is my buddy Tibbs. I've talked to her in a couple other videos. She's talking to me, telling me she wants to be on camera. What do you want, kiddo? Huh? What do you want, good girl? Tibbs is 1.5 years old. She's a cockapoo, purebred mom and a purebred dad. One of the smartest dogs we've ever had. Kid, I can't make a video with you barking at me. I can't talk to you right now, kiddo. I can't do it, okay? You give me a kiss? Give kisses. Oh, no kisses? You mad at daddy? You give kisses? You're a good girl. You're a good girl. Being a source of shame to your family for not abiding by accepted cultural practices, and being traumatic for any young girl, let alone one raised in cultures where she's considered subservient to men. And that's important too. Ihlan Omar walks around with a hijab on, and she knows clearly that it's a symbol of subservience to men throughout the world. The unpalatable truth is that the root cause of much of the world's entrenched misogyny in 2015 is Islam, and it manifests itself in a variety of ways, including the requirement for women to cover up. I mean, I've seen them here locally. You see these women in the stores, they're wearing a full burqa, and all you can see is an eye slit. And as soon as I see it, I run. I get as far away as I can. As far away as I can. Because it scares the shit out of me. I have no idea what's under that burqa. I don't know if that's a man, if that's a woman, if they've got a bomb under there and they're going to blow them all up or blow the store up in a terrorist act. I think they should be illegal. This is not something to be celebrated or emulated. But you can be sure no local council will be issuing a media release encouraging Muslim women to remove their hijabs in the interest of social cohesion. After all, why would we want women to assimilate? It would be unthinkable. All right, kiddo. I'm working here, kiddo. Okay? Be a good girl. It would be unthinkable. There would be rallies and cries of Islamophobia and another round of tiresome field pieces from a self-loaning media who continue those people on the left who continue to have a disproportionately loud voice in the media. Frankly, and I would suggest the overwhelming majority of people don't care if women in this country want to wear a hijab or observe cultural or religious practices. Fine, let them do it. The backlash against the town council wasn't an indication of how people feel about Muslim women and their choice to wear a hijab or other veils. Western people are among the most tolerant and inclusive people in the world. The reaction was a sign the majority is not willing to have their values compromised by stealth. That's what people like Ihlan Omar don't seem to understand. Fine, you want to wear a hijab, great, but don't walk around with it like a badge of courage and try and ram it down everyone's throat. And tell us how wonderful it is. If you want to wear it, wear it. And shut the fuck up. We don't care. Just like the gay pride parades. We don't have heterosexual pride parades. You want to walk down Fifth Avenue or wherever you have your parade, that's fine. But don't try and have me, a straight heterosexual male, be a champion of one guy sucking another guy's dick. Or one woman licking another woman's vagina. It's fucking sick. And it's wrong. And if you want to do it, do it. I'm a libertarian. Do it. Enjoy it. That's cool. But don't try and indoctrinate the rest of America with it. Don't try and jam it down anybody's throat and tell us it's normal, because it ain't. That's what the conservative in me says. The libertarian in me says, hey man, you're in your own house, you got your own life, you do what you want to do. For what it's worth, the city seems to have learned from this blunder. Council is not oblivious to views in the community and will consider community feedback. So, I hope this gives you an illustration of just how radical these three particular stooges are. I find it offensive and I find it scary. I find what they're doing nasty. I find it un-American. And I think the most dangerous part is that they learned very, very well from Barack Obama. They learned they learned how to use race. They learned how to use their gender. And they learned how to weaponize them. And what they're doing now is something the Democrats have always done. They've always been involved in racial politics, breaking people into groups, and pitting groups against one another. And the way they're doing it now is more insidious than ever before. Because if you say anything against them, you say anything to defend yourself, to defend the country, to defend traditional values, immediately they turn around and say, well, you're attacking me because I'm a woman. Or you're attacking me because of my Muslim faith. Or as AOC famously says, they just are attacking us because we're women of color. And now apparently, and I say apparently because I don't know, I haven't seen their emails or Twitter feeds. I don't answer the phones in their offices, but these three stooges say they're receiving numerous death threats. Each and every day they're getting death threats from people. When you say that on 9/11, a group of people did something to some other people, what the fuck do you think's gonna happen? You think people are just gonna sit by and be happy, or they're not gonna say anything at all? Listen to this. Rashida Talib, first Palestinian American elected in Congress.
When your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there and we're going to impeach the mother.
Did you hear what she said? Did you hear what she said? Now, she's a Democrat. She's way ultra-liberal lefty. So I guess when you're an ultra-liberal lefty, you walk around in front of your 8-year-old son or daughter all the time and say the word motherfucker because that's acceptable because you're a liberal. This woman was just elected. It's election night. She's at her campaign headquarters, seemingly. And she knows that there's TV there. She knows the media's there because she's got a microphone in her hand. And what does she say? I'll play it again.
And I said, baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there and we're going to impeach the mother.
Talking about President Trump to her 8-year-old son because bullies don't win. And we're going to go in there and we're going to impeach the motherfucker. First of all, President Trump's not a bully. He's one of the most compassionate presidents we've ever had. He's been a compassionate man his whole life. He's anything but a bully, unless, of course, you're an extreme left-wing ultra-liberal and he doesn't follow your policies, so naturally you're going to call him a bully. But this is a woman who was elected on a platform of impeaching the motherfucker. Nothing good to say, nothing solid to say, nothing to contribute to the national debate except that phrase. Involved in no real legislation, involved in nothing that's going to further the aims or goals or hopes of her constituents, except what she'll always be known for.
And I said, baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there and we're going to impeach the mother.
And the cheers that went up when she said that are almost as telling as the words she said. Obviously, the people in the room all voted for her. Obviously, the people in the room all think that's wonderful. So we talk like that in front of little kids, grade school kids, and this is the reason why we were elected to Congress. I don't know. I'm happy that we have so many people in Congress. We have 435 members of the House. Because if these three had any real power, the United States of America would be in real trouble. Real trouble. I thank God that, there are 432 other members. I really do. Because they scare me. They scare me badly. I don't know, folks. I don't know. I wanted to get this out there, though. And I wanted people to understand just a little bit about Rashida Talib and AOC and Ihlan Omar. I wanted you guys to see the hate, how far left they are, and how little regard they have for the country, and how little regard they have for traditional Americans. If the Green New Deal, if you know anything about it, if that doesn't scare the living shit out of you, and show how far AOC and her compatriots are willing to go toward Marxism, then certainly the attitudes and opinions and the words of Ihlan Omar and Rashida Talib should. They're not just stupid. They're evil. And sometimes evil wins. It's up to you and me to make sure that evil doesn't win. And it's up to you and me to try and make sure that conservative, traditional America lives on. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you got a little glimpse inside these three. It's the day before Easter. We've had the crucifixion of our Lord Jesus Christ. And tomorrow, Easter Sunday, will be the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. I will leave you with that and wish you all a happy, joyous, and safe Easter. Things are A-OK here in the snake pit. Till next time, God bless, folks.